everyone, and welcome back to my channel. Today I will be drawing Grandmamare and Fujimoto from Hayao Miyazaki's Ponyo. Since Ponyo is mostly based out of the water, I decided to use watercolors to kind of aid in the water feel. So as you can see, I have started this by working wet on wet. So in order to do this, I wet down the area of paper I would be working on and applied one of my lightest shades of blue. This way I could have a nice kind of water-like feel, well, to the water. All the layers but my final layer of the sea will be a wet on wet technique. Remember not to get your paper too wet. This will allow your work to look more crisp. Next, I decided to work on the sky. For the sky, I used a technique which I saw, well, actually I forget where I saw it. But in order to create the skies, I work a nice wet on wet layer. I make sure that it is really wet but not sopping. I use a slightly darker color than this sea. And then I use a piece of paper towel and I blot out some clouds. This will kind of give you natural looking clouds. Since I'm working with watercolors, I have to let each layer dry completely before adding another to prevent the painting from looking muddy. Therefore, you will see me jumping around a lot. Since I still needed the masking fluid, I decided to work on Grandmamare's eyes. In the movie, they were a golden color, so I made sure to keep that look. Fujimoto's eyes were a little bit more difficult. I kept his a kind of bluish green because it was difficult to see what color they really were. Now it's time to apply another layer to both the sea and the sky. For the sea, I made sure to wet down my paper and applied a slightly darker color. If you look at reference photos of seas, you will notice that oftentimes a sea is rather blotchy in the colors of blue. That is because of the waves. So I made sure that I did not completely cover the first layer while adding another layer. I then looked at reference photos to kind of observe how dark and lights will begin to change depending on how close the waves are to the viewer. To add more interest, I made sure to add a rather dark color to really exemplify the depth of the water. I then moved on to the sky. I kind of wanted the sky and the sea to kind of blend together, so I still worked on this while the sea was slightly damp. I went around the clouds to define the clouds themselves, and then I focused on some of the darker areas, which would add interest to my painting. Next, I moved on to a part of this drawing that I've actually been kind of dreading, but kind of excited about all at the same time. And that is Fujimoto's and Grandmamare's hair. So looking at reference photos, I kind of guessed that Fujimoto's hair is a bit more of like an orange color, and Grandmamare's is a bit more of a reddish pink. So I had to experiment. I didn't want his hair to be too very orange, so I took kind of more golden colors and used those. And I had to use them in layers because it added depth to his hair. So I added a blanket color of that kind of yellowish orange, which is, I guess, more golden. And then I went through and added some of my oranges to kind of deepen the color. And then I added my shadow color. After Fujimoto's hair, I moved on to Grandmamare's. Grandmamare's was a lot more difficult, and it took me a lot of experimenting in order to find the exact colors I wanted. But I decided that her hair was kind of more of a reddish pink. So I went through and added the highlights first. I used these in squiggly motions to give the waves to her hair. And then I went through with my red, the deepest red I had. And I used that as kind of the mid-tone. And then I used a almost purple, it's more of a maroon color, for all of her low lights. I will go back in and darken some of the areas a little bit later. This will actually make her curls look even more wavy. Moving on to the cliff in the background. The cliff needs many different colors to make it look like rock and give it a lot of good dimension. So I laid down a wet on wet wash, and I used kind of a warm brown and then dotted in some light blue, and then I let that dry completely. And then I used a salt glaze on top, and a salt glaze is when you put down a color, so I use dark brown, and then you sprinkle it with some salt, and then you let that dry completely. It will actually add texture on its own. So after that had dried, I wiped off the salt, and then I mixed sepia and indigo together, and that gives you a really nice dark color, and I sprinkled that on top for some added color. And then it was time for finishing details. So I drew on the stripes on Fujimoto's outfit, and you don't want to outline those because that won't make it look very realistic. And then I went back and focused on the background, and I went through and I put, using my white gel pen, I put waves crashing on the cliff in the background, and then I used white gel pen to kind of bring out some waves in the foreground, and I offset that with a nice dark blue that kind of and deepened some of the waves that I had already drawn. I want to thank you guys so much for watching my video. Please don't forget to thumbs up this video if you liked it, and don't forget to subscribe. Bye!